Welcome back to JCR Garage. This time I'm just going to use this as a way to vent my frustration at an utter piece of crap. Now, this is a 2000 Jeep Cherokee XJ. And if you know anything about one of these, you would probably recognize what engine that is. And it is a piece of crap. Because, well, you can see I've dismantled the entire front end, and the only reason I have done that is to gain access to be able to pull the heads off. Yes. Any guess on what it is? It's a 4-cylinder, and it has just as many heads. Aluminum heads. And yes, you can probably see the turbo, which means, well, and a diesel pump, if you know what that is. It is a 2.5 liter turbo diesel, the VM engine, the Italian. From here on out, it's called a piece of crap. Because, well, I have one of the cylinder heads down here. These things are aluminum. For some odd reason, they have put 4 aluminum heads on top of one cast iron engine block. And it is a nightmare to be working on. Well, you could imagine, well, this is where the water pump used to sit, and it used to stick out to about here and around here, which meant I couldn't reach this bolt on the intake. So I had to take that off. And I couldn't reach it with anything, not a wrench or a socket or anything. So I had to pull that off. Then I had to pull the alternator and the alternator bracket off that used to sit there. And to get the intake off, because the intake is loose on all heads, but it won't come off because it's crashing with the exhaust manifold back there. And I can't get the exhaust manifold off because the turbo is in the way. The last bolt for the exhaust manifold is behind there, and nothing gets onto it. Not a socket of any size. Not a wrench of any size, nothing gets back there. Which means I have to take the turbo off. And there is no room to take the turbo off on the car. At least not without dismantling everything here. Which is not an option because the owner doesn't want to spend too much money doing this. Now, on top of that, not wanting to spend too much money, he has a Grand Cherokee with the same engine in it, which should be coming here today. So we can have a look if that engine is the same and we can fit it into this car. Because these things have an overheating problem, which this one also had. I have pressure tested the cylinders, and I've come to the conclusion that it blew out the head gasket on number 4, which then has led to a crack in head number 3 and warped number 2 and 1. So 1 and 2 are warped, 3 might be warped, and 4 might be warped, but I know those 2 are warped. That one is cracked into the exhaust. That one, well, it leaks from the gasket, so probably warped and blown out. Unless it's just this head cracking first and the rest warping. That is also an option. Now, these have a reputation for, well, overheating, because that's the problem with them. So if you ever come across a 2.5 liter turbo diesel Jeep, either have a lot of patience and replace the head gasket and make sure everything is clean, because there are a lot of small banjo bolts on this thing that has to do with the coolant. Either you go through all that, make sure everything is spotless and clean. Now this one had a lot of oxidation in the water pump, and not rust, but the white and green sort of thing you get from aluminum. And Either that or just throw the damn thing out and put a 4-liter in it. Now this one, oh, digital odometer. I can't really see how far it's gone. But like I said, this is a 2000. It's 6 years newer than the one I have a video of me thrashing on a field. The one we used to have was a 4-liter. And it ran like a champ. I mean, the 4-liter Jeep engine, those really impressed me. This thing, on the other hand, I hate thoroughly. Within the first hour of me wrenching on this thing, I had gotten, what was it, maybe 6 nuts off? And I completely hated it. I was off the engine, and I had already taken the battery out, airbox out, intake pipe, turbo piping, and, well, radiator piping, well, radiator hoses, taking all those out. And after wrenching on it a bit, I figured, well, I have to take the water pump off. To get the water pump off, well, I could have taken it off without taking all this off, but it was in the way. And it made the job a lot harder. And since the front is held in with, well, 4 nuts and 6 bolts, I just took those out and had the front end off and got better access to all this, because this is just the AC radiator and it's, well, movable. Somewhat movable. To at all get to this. And even with that, I've had to pry the number 1 and 2 heads off of it in order just to get them out there, because, well, I had to inspect them to have something to report back to the owner without blowing this thing apart. Now, I did consider dynamite, but I couldn't get my hands on some. So a part of me is hoping that this thing does not get back together at all. I just hope this is scrapped, along with the idea to put the other engine in it, because one thing, I don't want to mess with this anymore because I've already done too much. But there are a lot more cars in here. Like this, it's a Mitsubishi Pajero, Shogun, whatever you want to call them. And it has a lot of rust. There's been over 20 hours on this area alone. Well, actually, this area alone. And there are about 5 more left. On top of that, if you remember a while back, I did a video on a something or other Subaru EJ22 BJ Legacy. That has been to its inspection and failed because the rear subframe is rusted apart. There is, well, for reference, the Jeep headlight is a good one. Most people probably know how big these lights are. Now, it was missing about half of the width of this light of the rear subframe. It was rusted off, so it's just dangling around back there. And I do know that it has been a long time since there's been an update on that. But it is still running. It's running strong. Well, it has a bit of an oil leak issue now from the fuel pump, which is block mounted, but all in all, it's run pretty good. A few things I need to do this summer just to get it to closer to where I want it. I mean, the front fenders are going to be replaced at some point, and I need a door card, a mirror, a few other things, as well as a set of summer tires. Now, another thing, while I'm standing here and it's almost visible, the Mercury Cougar that was barely in the background of one of the videos, and I got a couple of questions on that. There was actually one guy who wondered if that was the, what was it they called it? Well, it was a Roadkill Garage Cougar. Thought it was that one, but it's not. Because, well, this is the complete other side of the Atlantic and the Pacific. It depends on which way you go. But it is sitting here. That is not the Roadkill Cougar, but it is. Well, I think it belongs to probably my third cousin, probably. I think it is that. I've never really gotten into how we are related. But we need to replace the radiator in that one, as well as rear leaf springs. Well, there's only one set of leaf springs on it. Leaf springs, and there's a bit of rust on it. This needs to be taken. That actually is a factory 4-speed 351 Windsor car. So it's a 69, I think. Got some pretty good new tires on it, BF Garages, on American Racing rims. It looks like an absolute hoopty, pretty much like this thing does, but, well, he likes it, and I'm guessing that's about enough. It does say Cougar, but I'm pretty sure it's just a regular house cat at this point, because the brakes, oh, they are bad. It is 4-wheel drums. You have to stand on the pedal for anything to happen. And the clutch, well, it has about this much bite at the bottom of the pedal. I drove it here. It was a half-an-hour drive, and it was a nightmare, literally. I didn't really think I'd make it home. Some of it was because of the leaf springs, but a lot of it was because of the brakes. They were awful. Now he has put what are they called? T5s? It has a 5-speed. The 5-speed transmission you get for a small block Ford. Yeah. That is pretty much going to be it for this time. I'll be back later with a new video on something or other. Like always, I never know what I'm going to film until I actually do it. So, I'll be back later. You should go down and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, like this video, and the wind is picking up. There is going to be a new video on automotive discussion coming out probably either before this or just after it. I just shot it, so I don't know when it's going to be out, but it'll be right around this video. Yeah. Take care. Oh, I almost forgot. Also remember the giveaway that we're doing. It is down in the description and probably also up there and at the end of this video on the end card. Take care.